Good evening, everybody. Just a quick minute. Rabbi Jacobson will be starting to speak at 8:30. In the meantime, if you can help yourself to some refreshment, some coffee, and we'll get started shortly. Maybe we'll do a minion on the side as well. We're going to be starting in a minute. I know you're all waiting very patiently, and I appreciate your patience. If everyone can please find their seats, we'll be starting shortly. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jake Rosenberg, and I'm proud to be hosting all of you tonight. The fact that so many people showed up on such short notice only proves to me that the Jewish people are the most amazing and kind and caring people out there, because we all know that this is a topic that needs to be discussed, and so I appreciate that you all came out tonight. I got involved with AZ House Jerusalem to host this event because this is a topic that I can relate to, and I feel it's been a bit of a taboo in our community for a little bit too long. And sadly, the issue of addiction is not going away, and it must be spoken about. Now, we're joined here tonight by Brian and Eric from AZ House Jerusalem, and they'll be talking a little bit later tonight about what AZ House does for people with addiction. But before we bring them up here, we're joined tonight by a very special guest, and I'm honored to introduce Rabbi Jacobson to speak a little bit before we talk about the AZ House of Jerusalem. Rabbi Jacobson.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If I could just ask you to put, Good je hier nog? A mazel noch that there's Shabbos, that you could say something without it going viral in 3.5 seconds. You get to appreciate Shabbos. If I could just ask you to put your cell phones on vibrate or on off, I will do the same thing, so that we can have a few moments of peace and serenity. Okay. Wasser, ein bisschen Wasser, ne? Okay, this is my 5th lecture here today. Right? Somewhere there. Or 4th lecture. 4th lecture here today. A großen Dank, thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dvareh. So welcome everybody, and I want to thank you for the privilege of inviting me to such an important evening and an important event. I'm sure you'll hear more about this special center of recovery in the Holy Land. The way I got involved with this was a very close friend who has 2 children who both fell prey to the calamity and disease of addiction, and did not have the funds to be able to find an appropriate center of recovery. Some of them are great, some of them are lousy, some of them are okay, some of them are horrible, some of them are extraordinary, but all of them cost a lot of money. And in great desperation and yearning, he discovered this AZ house in Eretz Yisrael, and 2 of his children, not 1, but 2 of his children, experienced tremendous emotional and spiritual and mental growth from the abyss of addiction to the blessings and healings of recovery. And hearing about this from his personal point of view compelled me on an emotional level to be part of it. I don't know if there's any other center in Israel, there's probably not, right? That takes in addicts, an 8-month program, and literally feeds them and nurtures them mamish for free. So number one, it's good for people to have awareness. People have children, nephews, nieces, cousins, friends, relatives, community members. Sometimes you see posts, you see emails. It's important for people to be educated about the alternatives and the possibilities for hope, for healing, and for recovery. Which brings us, of course, to a much larger issue. It's not a larger issue, it's all part of the same issue. And that is our attitude towards addiction and recovery. And I want to, with your permission, address that for a few moments. I'm going to start off with a story about the Baal Shem Tov. It's a very strange story, but I think the story contains profound, relevant depth on this topic. I heard this story from one of my teachers. His name is Rabbi Khan. I heard it from him many, many years ago. I was a young bacher, I was a young man, a student, a yeshiva student. I didn't really understand it at the time. I was amused by the story. I thought it was charming and strange. I didn't understand it. Today, I probably still don't understand it, but I think I understand it a little better. And he told us that there was a tradition among Hasidim that the Baal Shem Tov used to daven. He would pray for very long hours. And there was a fellow who would come every day, or almost every day, to observe the davening of the Baal Shem Tov. Now, this fellow was not a disciple. He was not a student. He was not a chassid. He was not a learned Jew. He was not a simple Jew. He was actually what we would call today an addict. And he was an addict to alcoholism. He wasn't just somebody who said l'chaim from time to time. He was an alcoholic in the fullest sense of the word, which, by the way, also applies to people who say l'chaim from time to time. They just don't call it alcoholism. They call it l'chaim, but that's just often camouflaging a disease, which is sad. This fellow was a tremendous alcoholic, and he would stay there for the prayers of the Baal Shem Tov, and then when the davening was over, he would go to a bar, what they used to call a krechma, an inn, a full-fledged bar in Mezhebush in the Ukraine, and he would drink and drink and drink incessantly. He was what they called the classic shikr, the classic inebriated, intoxicated alcoholic, to the point that he was on a daily basis smashed and stoned till he woke up, went back to the Baal Shem Tov's davening. And right after that, he went to drink. And they once asked him, what's going on? Most people, when they heard a davening from the Baal Shem Tov, they went to learn after, they went to daven themselves, they went to do a mitzvah. They were inspired to serve Hashem with more enthusiasm. This is what you're doing with the davening of the Baal Shem Tov. What's the meaning of this? And the man, I guess he was an alcoholic, but he was not stupid like most addicts. Addicts, but not always stupid, sometimes on the contrary. He said something very profound. I can't remember, it's many years, if he said it or somebody else explained it, but this was the explanation. Every craving in life is finite. Every taiva is finite. Meaning, we all have cravings, intense cravings. But how big are those cravings? They're all limited. By definition, people are mortal, and our cravings are also finite and mortal. He said, I knew I can go drink. I like alcohol, but it's going to be a very limited craving, and therefore the satisfaction is always as intense as the craving. You all know it, especially those who have experienced a little bit of addiction in their life, that the satisfaction is always as intense as the craving, and the promise of it seems so powerful before you do it, and then after you do it, it's like, what's next? And tomorrow you need a greater dosage in order to satisfy yet a deeper void, and the vicious cycle moves on. And here he said something unbelievably profound. He says, but the Baal Shem Tov's davening touches on the infinite. The Baal Shem Tov's davening touches on the Ein Sof. The Baal Shem Tov was yearning for the infinite, and he was touching the infinite. So he said, after that, when I go to drink, I'm not just looking for a drink. The search for the alcohol is so much deeper. It's so much more profound. It's so much more intense. And when I finally get the drink, mechaya. And tomorrow I come back for more. What this person was saying was really, the way I understand it, is something very profound. Addiction is not the problem. Addiction is the solution. What we always have to identify is, what's the problem? It's very easy to call addiction the problem. It's easy. He's an addict, she's an addict, our community is full of addicts. The problem of addiction we hear every day about. That's the problem. Of course, I know that. But that's a very limited perspective, and it doesn't help us much. Actually, it distracts us from our responsibility. You see, my dearest friends, for the addict, addiction is not the problem. Addiction is the solution. Addiction is the place where she or he runs to in order to ease the pain, in order to numb the anxiety, in order to fill the void. Yes, to ease the pain superficially, to numb the anxiety in a false way, to fill the void in a way that's going to come back to haunt him or her. But in his impoverished perception, this is my solution. This is my Mashiach. This is my Messiah. This is my God. Just get me into the casino. Just get me into that website. Just get me into this club. Just give me this alcohol. Just get me this substance. I don't have to elaborate on more. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. That's my solution. That's my false Mashiach, which may last for 5 minutes, may last for 3 minutes, may last for an hour or a few hours. It's that high that just allows me to distract myself from who I am and where I am and from all my pain. That's my solution. That's not my problem. Addiction is the solution. You know what we have to talk about? What's the problem that's driving him or her to the solution? Ooh, this is a much more difficult question. It's easy to curse out addiction, and we all know how horrible that is. But that's the facade. That's his solution. Now I want to know, what's the problem? What is eating up inside? What is eating him up inside? What is the worm? What is the disease? What are the thoughts? What is going on in his psyche? What is the problem that is driving this person to the solution? For that, we have to look deep inside ourselves. For that, we have to look deep inside our homes. For that, we have to look deep inside our communities. For that, we have to look deep inside our own neshamas, the way we communicate with our children, the way we communicate with ourselves, the experience that a young generation is getting, what is happening in people's lives that is causing them so much untold pain that they are ready to allow themselves to run to this solution, which we call the disease of addiction. I was once speaking with Rabbi Dr. Shia Twersky, Rabbi Abraham Twersky, who is one of the well-known gurus in the Jewish world, in the world of recovery. We were together in Boca Raton for a Shabbaton. And I asked him, and I said, Rabbi Twersky, you have been 60 years in this field. What did you learn in 60 years? He smiled. What he's supposed to tell him? It's like the convert who comes to Hillel wants to learn the whole Torah on 1 foot. I said, I'm not asking for everything. I'm just asking something meaningful that you learned in 60 years of dealing with addiction. And he told me something very, very deep. And he said, 60 years of experience have taught me that the addicts among us are usually the most spiritual and the most sensitive. We often look at them and say, the dregs of society. He said it's the contrary. Everyone has pain in life. Everybody experiences pain. But many people just know how to dismiss the pain. Everyone experiences hypocrisy. Not everybody, but many people. A lot of people experience lies, toxicity, abuse, dysfunction, to one degree or another. But many people know how to just gloss over it and distract themselves in easy ways. But those who are the most spiritual among us and the most sensitive among us, their needs are so much deeper because they need truth. They need to be really, really connected. And when they don't have that, that void is so much more accentuated. It's so much more powerful. It's so much more painful. They can't just ignore it. They're too sensitive. What others don't feel so deeply penetrates them to their deepest core. What others can just ignore, they can't. They just can't live with it. And the anxiety becomes so overwhelming, they have to take extreme measures in order to give themselves just a few minutes of calmness, a few minutes of tranquility. It's because of the depth of their spirituality that for them to fill the void takes much, much more, because the void is so much more acute. The void is much more powerful. And I think what he was really saying, and I think this is really true, is, and I hope this comes out nicely. Well, it won't come out that nicely, but I hope it comes out fine, is we look at certain people, say, those are the addicts. They need a home. We're all addicts. We're all addicts. Who sitting in this room doesn't have a void? Who within us, who doesn't suffer from some type of anxiety? Who is not dealing with stress? Who is not dealing with something disturbing in your life? I can't say all of us, but many of us. And even those who are successful and live productive lives, there are profound voids that we have, and we try to escape them. And one of the greatest voids is what the Baal Shem Tov and his students would call the void that's created as a result of self-consciousness, which was born right after Adam and Chava ate from the tree of knowledge. What does it mean, a tree of knowledge? What did they get to know? They got to become self-conscious. Before they ate from the tree, they were very conscious, but they were divine conscious, meaning they saw themselves as part of infinity. That's why they can walk around naked and not feel weird, because if you're a manifestation of Hashem in this world, what's the problem with walking around without clothes? I'm not embarrassed by my pinky. Why should I be embarrassed with any other part of my body? On my arm, I put on tefillin. Why should I be embarrassed with my arm when I'm wearing tefillin? Why should I be embarrassed with any other part of my body if it's just a manifestation of godliness in this world? What happened when they ate from the tree of Das is they became self-aware, they became self-conscious. So what's the first question Hashem asks Adam and Chava? Ayeka, where are you? Why didn't they have this question before? Because somehow no animal has this question. No tree wakes up in the morning. All the trees go to sleep now. They're not like us. We have nightlife. Trees follow God's rhythm of nature. The birds are sleeping. Everybody is schluffing now. Nobody wakes up in the morning and like, who am I? Why am I? To piddle or not to piddle, that is the question. Why am I not a cat? Why am I not a frog? They're just part of the symphony of creation. Humanity, from the moment of the Eitz Hadas, became self-conscious. I'm always looking where I fit in. Do I fit in? I come to a wedding. I come to a bar mitzvah. Can I just melt away smoothly and easily and be part of the experience? I come into a class. Can I just sit there and not even feel myself? I teach for many, many years. One of the things that drives me crazy is that when somebody walks in, everybody turns around. I could be saying the most mesmerizing story, but everybody turns around. You want to come in and you will see. Everybody turns around. It's like, so I become self-conscious. poor person who walks in, first becomes self-conscious, but the only seat is in the front. So now he has to walk till the front, and he's sitting here for the rest of the hour, and I'm looking at him. The guy can't even hear a word I'm saying, because he's thinking about where he or she fits into life. This feeling of self-consciousness accompanies us everywhere. Who am I? What am I? What am I feeling? What am I not feeling? Do you like me? Don't you like me? Am I angry? Am I not angry? Am I secure? Am I insecure? Whoa, 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 whoa. Before the Eitz Hadas, the I was just part of the divine I. It was all good. But now I'm trying to invest in an ego that doesn't really exist, because ego means easing God out. And I'm trying to find a place for something that doesn't exist. So God says, Ayeka. And at that moment, man went into therapy for the last 5,000 years. And we're still trying to experience some type of recovery. We're still trying to heal. The light of Mashiach, the light of Geula that's filling the world now, is the light of recovery. What's recovery? What's the problem with addiction? The problem with addiction is it distracts me from my self-consciousness, but it doesn't help me go above my self-consciousness. It just distracts me that for a few moments I shouldn't feel the pain by literally numbing it. What's the real recovery? The real recovery is when I reach a space where I transcend my self-consciousness by really discovering that that self is just a channel for infinity in the world. And people who are more sensitive to this truth feel this void of self-consciousness more than everybody else. They can't ignore it. The iPhone doesn't work for them. For all of us, we go in an elevator, instead of looking at people and saying, hi, how are you? You right away take out your phone. Right? Whenever you're distracted for a moment, you're feeling anxiety, we have immediately something to ease the anxiety. But people who are more sensitive, and people who are more ruchniistic, and people who are more acute with the void that exists in the entire cosmos since the Eitz Hadas, they just need so much more, especially if they experienced abuse and dysfunction, especially if they experienced trauma, especially if the messages they heard in their youth really play with their soul and their heart. And now there's two different worlds that come together in them, a world of idealism and a world of corruption. And they mamish don't know how to find themselves. So they take drastic measures to just numb that pain for a few moments. And the only way we as a community can confront this is if we can acknowledge that what they're experiencing is just an exaggeration of what all of us are experiencing. And then I can tune into this person. I can be there with this person and for that person. This alcoholic, he wanted the Baal Shem Tov's davening. In fact, he was feeding off the Baal Shem Tov's davening. He was feeding off that infinite quest from the Baal Shem Tov, is what was really igniting him. Just, he didn't know how to daven. He didn't know how to connect to infinity. The Baal Shem Tov knew how to melt away in infinity and daven. That's why the Baal Shem Tov came to the world, to teach us how to heal from the Eitz Hadas, to be able to look at God and say, Ayeka, where are you? I'm right here with you. That's where I am. Instead, Adam HaRishon started to give a whole pilpul that I ate and I went in hiding and I'm hiding and everybody is hiding. But this Nebuch, this Shikr, didn't know how to do that. So he takes the search of the Baal Shem Tov, and what does he do with it? He goes to the bar, he goes to drink, which really means that addiction is the solution. And the problem is much, much, much deeper. Which also is telling us something very powerful. And that is, we have to speak about recovery. We have to speak about centers of recovery, but we have to speak about something else. And that is preventive medicine. What are the most powerful things you can do in your home, in your family, in your community that will help people not end up in this abyss? For starters, Once people are struggling with it, we have to create conversation about it. Somebody mentioned before that the stigmas around this are very, very profound, to the point that so many people are afraid to open up. They're afraid to get help. And if they often will speak to somebody, people who are uneducated will judge them and sometimes cast them further into the abyss. Some people live in hiding for decades. I get emails on a daily basis, people who are prominent people in their communities, but they suffer terribly. On the outside, they're functional, they're prominent, they're distinguished people. On the inside, they're rotting away. They don't have who to talk to. And I see how scared they are. They're sending me an email. I don't even know who they are, but they'll never sign some of them do sign. Many of them don't sign their name. They can't even trust a person in the email. Sometimes it takes correspondence of 6 months until the guy says, by the way, the email address is fake. I just made this address for you, and the signature is fake, and let me tell you who you are. And what pains me is, wow, if this person is afraid of sending it from his email, how much shame engulfs such a person. The stigmas are so powerful. When we can't talk about things in a real way, in an authentic way, how many people just end up in the pit of depression with nobody to address their true angst, their true problems. What about preventive medicine? I want to say 3 things that I think are very, very important, and people often ignore them. Number 1, don't wait till your children are teenagers and are exposed to these types of influences. You need to create an environment in your home of profound emotional bonding. Profound emotional bonding. There's nothing more important today for Jewish fathers and mothers than to bond emotionally with their children at the youngest age. Whatever that means, whether it's going for pizza or it's sitting on the floor playing Monopoly or playing Risk or playing chess, throwing frisbees or going swimming, going hiking or reading a book, learning together, farbringing together, schmoozing together, going for ice cream together, listening, being attentive. But fathers need to be emotionally connected to their children at the youngest of age. There should be conversation. There should be an expression of emotion. Family dinners must happen. People have to come home and get rid of their phones and sit around the table with their children, even if for 15 minutes, talk, listen, share experiences. All statistics and research has shown that children who grow up in such a home with such bonding and such an environment, the likelihood for them to fall prey to horrible, horrible influences which can destroy them emotionally, physically, and mentally and get them into addiction, the likelihood of that is diminished by serious, serious percentages. These are critical, critical messages today. Don't wait till he's 16. Don't wait till she's 17. At the youngest of age, you spend time. This is the most important thing, to create an atmosphere of bonding that is very deep. You should have a relationship with them, because children who have that protection are protected in the real world. I said on Shabbos that when there was somebody who was found dead in the field, the members, the sages of the Sanhedrin, and the sages of that city would come and they would bring a special offering known as the Egla Arufa. And the sages, the elders would say, Yadeinu lo shafchu es hadam hazeh. Our hands did not spill this blood. We're not responsible for the murder. So Rashi says, did anybody think that the chief rabbi murdered this person? He's saying, I didn't do it, we didn't do it. So Rashi says it doesn't mean everybody knows they didn't murder him. They said, we didn't allow him to leave this city without feeding him. We didn't allow him to leave this city without giving him a drink. We didn't allow him to leave our homes without escorting him. The question is, how would that help? Let's say you did, let's say you didn't. The guy was killed outside in the wilderness. So if I escorted him, I'm not responsible. If I didn't escort him, I am responsible. What does it have to do? Some murderer found this poor Jew and killed him. How is escorting him out of my home going to contribute to this one way or another way? It's a good thing to escort somebody, but that's not the determining factor of the death. And if I did escort him, I'm innocent, and if I didn't, I'm guilty. And the answer is, and it's a very profound answer, think about it psychologically and emotionally with abuse. Abusers and I know there are people sitting in this room who know this very well, abusers don't abuse any kid. They make sure to find the right child. If this Jew came to my house and I gave him to eat and I gave him to drink and I escorted him and I gave him his dignity, that abuser may look the other way and say, you know what? This kid I'm not starting up with. That murderer identifies. He knows somebody who's going to fight back. He knows somebody who has dignity. He knows somebody who has stolz. He knows somebody who will speak up. He knows somebody who will not go down easy, and the murderer says, you know what? Let's go to somebody else. Those bullies, those abusers identify the victim very, very well. When I fortify my child and I give him these resources, even when he comes across that psychological murderer, I'm not talking a murderer physically, chas v'shalom. I'm talking a murderer emotionally or spiritually, psychologically. When he is fortified, it's a different story. How do children get fortified? We have to fortify them. You got to give them that dignity, that stolz, that emotional connection, that feeling that you're loved, that your value is non-negotiable, that you're loved unconditional, that your preciousness in the eyes of God is infinite. And even if you make mistakes, there is nothing that can destroy that preciousness. Which is, I once heard from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, why is the last shear that Yaakov gave Yosef, what was it about? Egla Arufa. And that's how Yosef proved to Yaakov that he's alive. Why was that the last shear? 630 mitzvahs. Yaakov couldn't choose something else besides Egla Arufa. So you'll say, well, Yaakov didn't know. But the Hashgacha knew. The answer is, Yaakov was giving Yosef this message unconsciously. Yosef, you're going to go to dark places, but you have been fortified. You have been fortified. That's what it means that when he saw Potiphar's wife and she wanted him to violate her and be with her, what did he see in the window? You remember? The image of Yaakov. What image did he see? What, there was a poster? What, CNN in Egypt was interviewing Yaakov Avinu? Where did he see an image of Yaakov in the window? He saw the image of Yaakov. He had a father. He had a father who fortified him. He could look at her and say, no, I will not fall prey to this abyss. I will not be part of this. When Yosef told Yaakov, I remember the shear of Egla Arufa, Vatechi ruach Yaakov avihem. Yaakov came to life. It's all he had to hear to know that 22 years later, his son Yosef was aligned. That's all he had to hear. He didn't have to hear drushes, pilpulim, messages, WhatsApps. No, all he had to hear is, Father, I remember the shear of Egla Arufa. That's it. Vatechi ruach Yaakov. That's what the pasuk says. Vayaris ha'agolois. He saw the Egla Arufa. Vatechi ruach Yaakov avim. Came to life. That's our duty today. That's our obligation today with our students, with our friends, with our nephews, with our nieces, with our cousins, with our communities, with our disciples, and of course, with our siblings, and certainly with our beloved children and with our beloved grandchildren. It's number one. Number two, as your children are growing up, you got to be present. You mamish have to be present. It's very nice to be liberal and say, my children are responsible, they can have this, they can have that. You have to be present. And in an appropriate and sensitive way, at the right age, you have to speak to every one of your children about the challenges that they may encounter inside themselves and outside of themselves. In the right time, the right person, in the right way, appropriate to this child. Because we live in a dangerous world. And even if you live in a ghetto in Muncie, and the school gets a signature from every parent that nobody has an iPhone, because you have two phones, according to the minhag. And everything looks perfectly safe. I promise you that there's one kid in that class who knows more than me about this. And I'm not that naive. How do I know this? I know this for my own children. I know this for many other children who come to me at the age of 21. I said, when do you find out about all of this? 5th grade. Really? 5th grade, of course. Who? There was a boy in the class. And this is in the best communities, most holy, sacred, religious communities in Muncie, Borough Park, Lakewood, Williamsburg, Meir Sha'arim, B'nai Brak. Beautiful, holy communities. You got to be connected to your kids. Speak to them, listen to them, see what's going on. Don't let them cruise through the waters of life independently. Not just enough to fortify them and say, you go. You be present. Speak, communicate. But the only way you could speak to your children is if they feel connected to you. Don't sever those cords, not in younger ages and not in older ages. And then finally, the third component is parents need to be emotionally healthy. When your marriage is in the dumps and when you're dysfunctional yourself, your children will pick up on it, consciously or subconsciously, and they will act out based on that. I cannot make my kids happy. I can make myself happy. I cannot protect my children from everything, but I can create a home that is filled with love and trust and camaraderie. When fathers and mothers are killing each other, hollering at each other, insulting each other, denigrating each other, even if it's a Cold War like Russia and America in I wanted to say the good old days, but like Russia and America in the old days, maybe soon. If there's a Cold War in the house, if Tati is this way and Mommy is this way, and the kids know how to manipulate and exploit the differences between them, the environment is not holistic. We must work on ourselves. Don't educate your children, educate yourself. And then by osmosis, you can transfer that to your children. This is critical, which comes with one final point, and that is, don't be afraid of disciplining your children in a loving way. What happened was there's two streams of thought, and they're both destructive. Some of us grew up in environments and schools where we were beaten. Me personally, I was not, but a lot of you grew up in places where you were frasked. There was one diagnosis for all kids. There wasn't ADD, PDD, ADHD. There was one that's called frask here, frask there. It healed some of them. It destroyed some of them. There was even this beautiful minhag of having your fingers, you remember, together with a stick on the fingers because you weren't pointing. Some of you are still traumatized from it. So what do you decide? You decide that with your kids, you're going to go to the other extreme. And what type of home is it? Everything is yes, 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 yes. I'm not judging you, but you're not helping your kids. Because just as kids who grew up in a boot camp that's oppressive are not safe, kids who grew up in a home of permissiveness are also not safe. They don't feel that there are boundaries. Imagine, I take my kids, I put them on the roof of a building, and I say, play football until you knock yourselves out, and I want tackle football. Only one problem, it's 60 stories high and there's no fence. How much fun will that football game be? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not a parent who creates boundaries. I grew up in a school where everybody was oppressing us. In my philosophy, let freedom ring. You're not doing your kids a favor. They're going to be frightened of taking one extra step in this football game, never mind reaching the end zone, because Chalila v'chas, they're looking down what's happening on the other side of the roof. If you build a fence, you could run, you could kill yourself. I don't mean kill yourself. You could run and have a great time and knock yourself out. Why? Because there are fences. Good homes have good, what do they say? Good fences, good neighbors make. But I'm saying good fences, good homes make. Discipline doesn't mean anger. Discipline doesn't mean impulsiveness. Discipline doesn't mean trauma. Discipline doesn't mean abuse. Discipline means that your kids know there are expectations. Your kids know that there are values that you teach in this home. Your kids know that this home operates on a certain level of consciousness, and your kids know that they're not going to get away with anything else. I'm not talking about unique exceptions of children who are struggling with something unique and you have to address it. I'm talking on a general level. Don't be afraid of creating that environment, not with anger, not with impulsiveness, not because you're crazy and very intense and come home in a bad mood, but coming out of caring, attentiveness, thoughtfulness, and profound love. It's not just enough to address addiction after it happens. Our main responsibility is to create families and communities, schools and homes, where there's an environment that nurtures people in a way that they don't have to run to addiction when they're 14 years old, when they're 15 years old, 16 years old. And even if a school is imperfect, and there are still a few schools that are imperfect, there are still a few homes that are imperfect, we have to work very, very hard to tune into those needs of every single child and identify those weak points so that this child, when he or she grows up, can be fortified on every level, not to chalila v'chas, feel any need to go to addiction. I had a conversation the other day with two young children, young, a little older than my mitzvah, in my community, whose families I know very, very well. And they had some questions about certain issues with their bodies changing. And I spoke to both of them separately. And when they finished asking their questions, I asked the first one if he's experiencing certain cravings in his body right now. And he said, nah, not much, not really. Okay. I said, if this and this comes up, you can always talk to somebody, and this is how you should deal with it. Then I spoke to the other child, another family. And the moment I asked him, he said, of course I'm experiencing cravings to this. I said, do you have friends who are addicted to this and this type of material? He said, oh, yeah. Oh yes. I said, are you involved in it? He said, no. I said, why, you don't want to be? He says, no, I want to be. I want to be. But I chose not to. I said, wow, somebody gave you powerful information. You're not judging yourself. You're not criticizing yourself. You're aware of different experiences that you're having, and you're fortified enough to make productive choices. How many children don't begin to have any direction and any guidance in any of the things that I'm talking about? Everything is done clandestinely behind closed doors, conjuring up ideas in their own brain based on YouTube or based on friends, and fathers, mothers, mentors, healthy teachers are completely in the dark until years later when things spiral out of control. It's easy to shove this under the rug. Don't. Because when you protect the roots of the tree, the seeds, before it blossoms into the tree, it will translate into all the leaves and all the fruits when it's still under the ground, when it's still beginning to blossom. But finally, there are all those souls who, for whatever reason, and ultimately every neshama has its journey, have fallen prey to the disease of addiction. And they don't even know there's a way out. There's mamish, they don't even know there's a way out. So the awareness of such a home like Azi's home in Eretz Yisrael is so critical and so valuable. But I also want to say something else and conclude with this because my time is up. And that is, we all meet people all day. We're all meeting people. We meet people face to face, and unfortunately we meet many more people through this, not face to face. I say unfortunately because face to face is a much better meeting. But we meet a lot of people through these toys and tzatzkes, and we also meet people face to face. You'll never know how people are struggling. They say the definition of a nudnik is, you ask him how you're doing, and he actually tells you. We have an unwritten rule that when somebody asks you how you're doing, you don't give a real answer, right? Was machst du? Was machst du, Yankel? Hashem. Everything good? Yeah, Hashem. Everything wonderful? Absolutely yes. But try this experiment. Next time somebody says, what's going on? Okay, my mortgage, I haven't paid already in 2 months. I'm struggling with a kid going into school. And by the way, the cleaners just ruined both of my suits, my best suits. Talking about this, there's a leak in my bathroom. My cleaning lady did not show up. My wife is mamish a wreck. I also lost my job yesterday, and my car is in the mechanic. Besides the fact the principal called me that my kid can't come back to school, at some point the guy's going to say, why do you think I'm interested? We meet people all the time. We never know what's going on in people's hearts and people's minds. Don't be stingy with warmth. Don't be stingy with love. In this shul, you could find 200-300 teenagers a day. Sometimes 100, sometimes 50, 24 hours a day. Some of them show up at 1 in the morning, some of them show up at 5 in the morning, some of them show up before Kol Chatzos and middle Kol Chatzos for the vegetable soup, for the cholent on Wednesday, for the cholent on Sunday, for the bagels that come out Monday, for the steak that appears on Tuesday, for the sushi that comes, you didn't know this, hang around more, for the sushi that comes out Thursday morning, for the sponge cake and sprinkle cake that come here Friday afternoon, 24 hours. I say to you, not every one of us can build a home of recovery like these great souls who have a home for free and feed them and nurture them and get them therapy and get them a job and give them a little normalcy and help them discover their neshama, their chelik elikamal and dignity. But I'll tell you what you and I can do. There's 300 teenagers here a day. 10 of them say good morning, give them a hug. If you're uncomfortable with a hug, look them in the eyes and say, can I be here for you in any way? You have a beautiful face. Your face is shining. A good vort, a varme vort. Lift them up. Embrace them. I'm talking to the men. I'm also talking to the women. Everyone has influence. Don't be stingy with love. Don't be stingy with warmth. Don't be stingy with bonding. It doesn't cost any money. Don't be stingy with giving people words of encouragement, of hope, of inspiration. You know today what people have to do? You have to walk around with seeds and just throw the, you know when there's a snow and you walk around with salt and you just throw the salt everywhere. Everyone today has to have a bag with hundreds of seeds of love. Just throw them around. You know why? Because a few trees are going to grow. A few trees are going to grow. I hear from people sometimes, you know, you said this, you told me this, you came here, you said a word. 20 years later, he got his life together. Because of something I said to him, I even forgot that I said it. Be genuine. Don't be stingy. Build people up. Be ambassadors of love, of light, of hope, of healing, of recovery. We are ambassadors in this world. That's what we are. We are here to be ambassadors. Ambassadors of what? Ambassadors of the infinite power of each and every individual to live a life of deep and profound oneness with infinity, oneness with Hashem, to live a life of Geula consciousness, to live a life of redemption. And I want to congratulate the leaders of this AZ home and all of its supporters and all of its staff and all of those who assisted and will assist it in the future, that you should be able to maximize your potential. I know now your capacity is only for 19. I wish you wouldn't have to have more, but unfortunately, you still need capacity for much more to be able to grow such homes and such environments where our young boys and girls can find hope, can find meaning. Chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wow.
What an amazing speech. Not a single point over there could have been said or made any better. I feel like we may have been taken on a little bit of a roller coaster tonight, but at the end of the day, isn't that what addiction does to us? It takes us on a roller coaster that unfortunately tends not to end very well. Before I call up Eric from the AZ House to talk a little bit about what they do, if we can all take a moment, I want to take a moment to remember all of those that unfortunately did not have the opportunity to this road of recovery, to the opportunities that a place like AZ House offers. So if we could take a moment of silence and remember those that we have lost. Thank you. So many of those lives could have been saved. They were beautiful souls. Unfortunately, I've lost quite a few friends of my own. That did not need to happen. But we're here tonight to talk about what we could do to save those that are still around, those that we could still help. And so I'd like to invite Eric from AZ House to tell us a little bit more about what they do. And after he's done, we're going to open up the floor to an open discussion. If you have any questions or comments, we'll be more than happy to answer. Eric.
Thank you, Jacob, and thank you, Basi, Nahum, and YY Jacobson for speaking for us tonight, and Rabbi Scheinerman for providing the space. Where the whole team is here tonight, and we're very excited to be putting on this event and to have all of you here tonight and talking about this relatively solemn topic. And I'm glad to see that this discussion is continuing and that this topic is continuing to, rise higher and higher to the surface, because this problem is not getting any smaller. This problem isn't going away, and more people are being affected as time goes on, as society keeps speeding up. It doesn't look like it's slowing down. It's not 1995. I wish it was, but it's not. And more kids, young adults, parents, grandparents, everyone's being affected. We all know someone. We all know someone who's being affected by this. So I'm just glad to be here tonight and have everyone here. So thank you for coming. So I moved to Israel about 3.5 years ago I visited for my first time and was offered a job at a treatment center. And when I arrived, the place unfortunately ended up closing. And during my time there, I realized that the model that saved my life wasn't available to the Jewish people. I have a history myself, and my parents did everything that they could. A lot of love, a lot of compassion, a lot of money, a lot of time, 10 years of energy, and the thing that finally saved my life was not available to the Jewish community, and I didn't understand. I didn't understand why. I didn't really know what was available. Just the different models, and I realized that there was something else to do. There was something else to provide, and I spoke with a friend that I had made in Israel, and not 4 months later, we opened the doors to our facility, which is been open since September 1st of 2016. We've had 60 young men and middle-aged men, guys come through our house, and we are very happy to continue to serve the community. And the main points and the main principles that we have in our house and what we teach our, everyone in is that they have to take responsibility, and that with hard work, with accountability, and with self-discipline, that they can achieve their goals and they can overcome this terrible affliction. Our program is an 8-month-long program set up into 2 phases, where for the first few months they're in the house in group sessions, 4 sessions a day, taking care of the house, taking care of different responsibilities for what's being provided to them. And then after we feel that they're ready, they move on to the second stage to go and look for work, start working, saving money, and continue with their lives. Our place, although we call it a facility, is more than that. It's a home. We have a dedicated staff. We have a philosophy that, people are, the guys coming in, we are not attached to an outcome in the sense that we don't have a direction, that they must fit into this box. They must go over here. They must do, what we think is right. We help them identify the direction that they want to go in, and we encourage them to go down that path. The love the unconditional love is exactly what, by that definition, it's not attached to any strings. And the families, the many families that we've worked with, have gone through a lot, and have, some of the residents that we've worked with have been in, some of them 10 different places. And we were wondering, what is it that needs to be different? And one of the things that, one of the philosophies is that our place is free. Our place is free, but it's not free because it's lesser than or smaller than. One of the things that we think makes us most effective is that we've separated the cost from the client, so that it makes it a lot easier to gain the confidence of who we are working with. An addict doesn't trust. An addict has, been out in the abyss, has been running the streets, is damaged. And, a lot of the kids come to us, and they wonder, why are we doing this? Why are we helping them? What are we getting out of it? And we tell them, we're getting out of it, we want to help you. We want to help you. And I think that separating that cost from the client, in our case, has made us very effective, and it provides more of a home environment versus a facility. That's why our model. It's not that our model happens to be free. It's that it has to be free in order for us to do our work. So I would like to open the floor for any questions and to open up for a discussion. And so thank you all again for being here. Yes.
So this is going to be a little bit vague, and you can choose how to answer it. But I'm curious. You mentioned that you were thinking in terms of what we do differently, what makes us different, that's going to set us apart from the other centers that there are out there. Because you mentioned people have been in 10 or however many. So what are some of the other things that you found aside from just the free model with the client? What are some of the things that make your center different that you found that are effective over others?
Okay, thank you. The question was, I'm repeating it. The question was, is what sets us apart? What is different? from these other centers, what makes us effective. I get you? Based on the fact that some of our clients have been in 10 other treatment centers prior to coming to us. So what makes us different, we do everything under one roof. Guys come from detox to us to work. There isn't a, like a inpatient portion and then going to a separate facility where there's a 3/4 portion or a halfway house portion. It's like very community oriented. The new guys are looked after by the older guys that have already gone through their stage. There's a lot of like peer support, a lot of camaraderie. It's very family oriented, and it doesn't feel like a facility, like a hospital, like a center. It feels like a home. The other thing is that all of our staff that work, anyone that's in our house, all of them are in recovery. Some of them are professionals, but they're with us primarily first and foremost because they're in recovery themselves. None of the guys are working with anyone that doesn't have a direct personal experience. We think that's extremely important. Like, if I'm someone who, God forbid, lost an arm, and someone is helping me get through that, and they're sitting here with 2 arms, what do they know about my experience, really? And so the people that work with our residents, they know what it's like. They've been there. A lot of other places do provide this, and there's a lot of awesome places out there. I know that it was like besides the fact that it's free, it's breaking down that wall. Also, breaking down that wall makes them a lot more receptive to the person that's sitting across from them. Like the resident is sitting there, like more willing to open up. I've seen things that I know would take years somewhere else happen in a night, happen in an hour. That the person that's sitting across, and they're not paying the staff salary. You got it.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, sir.
Besides, maybe you want to repeat it.
Yes.
Besides the point that they have the same great services like this, but it's also parents can focus on their children instead of being busy trying to raise $40,000 a month, so the children can be at a rehab, which is huge. It doesn't exist in the world in the Jewish community.
So I'll repeat that. That we also provide a service to the family itself that they can focus on their children and that are not having to fundraise $40,000 while trying to maintain a family and get this kid into rehab. People can get into our facility as soon as they hit the door. Like as soon as they can get there, they're in. There's not weeks and weeks of, or whatever, logistics, fundraising, pre-admission forms that take, however long to process by an administrative team. Get them on the phone today. Yes?
First of all, I really admire and appreciate your whole initiative. Beautiful organization.
Thank you.
My question is, so I understand the importance of empathy when dealing with the people in your home. However, at the same time, like what I was saying, you have to create boundaries. So what do conversations with the people in the home, what do the conversations sound like from the trainers and the people bringing over inspiration? Just give me like a little taste of what that sounds like. You want to provide the balance of both aspects.
Sure. So the question was to basically provide an example of what the conversation from the trainers or staff is like in our home, and based on that Rabbi YY said it was talking about boundaries and structure being necessary. Correct? I got you. Conversation. Well, I'll start with what our initial conversation is when someone calls in and asks me or asks one of the staff, but asks for a bed, which is one of the the primary, the only way to get into our center. We talk to families, we talk to parents, but if someone isn't calling us and doesn't want to come to our facility, there's probably not much we can do for them. So assuming that they've made that leap and that they're on the line, they're saying, Eric, I need help. I need you to help save my life. I'm lost. I'm going to die this way if I don't get help. Assuming that, and I tell them, okay, are you ready to do the work? They go, well, yeah, what is it? Whatever. And I go, you're up at this time. These are your responsibilities. These are your expectations. This is what you have to do. Absolutely nothing is negotiable, and and we don't have strikes. This is not a baseball game. This is what it takes to be in this house. This is what it's going to take to save your life. And if you don't want to do that, then you don't want to do this. And our house is run on that mentality. Like, yes, we're dealing with, a certain demographic that is a little bit rebellious, but we are free. We have this power to not tolerate any kind of unruly behavior. It makes it very hard to do our work. But when you don't tolerate it, it creates when you don't tolerate it, it creates an environment that is second to any other place. That is second to none. Having that the boundary is if you break the rules, you're gone. And we don't really have so many problems. The guys are very on top of each other, hold each other accountable. The conversations basically is we don't have issues with the boundaries. It allows us to do the other work. So the conversation is the conversations are very personal. The topics are very personal, they're personalized, meaning like they vary. Different guys come with different issues. How I feel cannot dictate how I behave. I might feel terrible. That doesn't mean that I can behave terrible. And that's, we're learning how to do that in our house. Did I answer your question? Yes.
So the structure of your system is that it's about having your actions. I think the whole idea of the healing is that it's having a structure in your life, and going through these actions of staying sober, being in a healthy environment, getting a job, helping out with other chores in the house. That's what's going to bring to the healing, along with all the inspiration that's happening.
Yes.
If I could add on to that, I think on a larger scale, what this is doing is it's making the people in your house develop a self-discipline to take care of themselves and to work towards a better life, if that makes sense. If I could ask a question.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about your plans for, you had mentioned to me earlier about opening new homes in Israel as well as in the States, as well as opening homes for girls as well as guys. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So the question is to talk about our future plans and hopes for this model to exist in other places, both in Israel and stateside. And so our closer plans are to open a girls' treatment center run by a team of women, which we have to find in Israel, and we want to also open a male treatment center, with our model here stateside, along with a sister program. My hope and dream, I want this. My hope is that this model, that people get interested, people learn how it works, and realize how important and how much of a gem it is, and for it to be way bigger than the one house that it is, and way bigger than the team that it is now, and to have one of these places in everyone's backyard, so, to have it, I don't want to, in the best way possible, I mean this, to be bigger than me, and to be something that is like, the new way to do things. I mean, there are other parts of the country where there's a lot of this model, but not for the Jewish people. There's 300 free beds in Cleveland, just like this. 3 centers for women, 5 centers for guys. Like, this is not a new thing. It's been going on for 30 years. And that's all that's available in Cleveland. If you go to treatment, that's where you go. That's where I went. So I hope that we have that same type of availability to the Jewish people everywhere, whether it's in Florida, whether it's on the West Coast, whether it's here, way bigger than something that I can't handle, something that we can take on as a community.
Where does your funding come from? I know as somebody involved in organizations and nonprofits, people with a dream are usually still running some things, and it's very hard to fundraise and do what you're passionate about at the same time. So somebody must be helping you a tremendous amount so that you can focus on what's important.
So I'm going to repeat the question. The question was, where does our funding come from, being as that we are a non-profit and that someone must be helping us. So to answer that question is, we do not have any large donors. We have no backers. Not that we wouldn't want one, or 2 or 5, and that where we see this going it's huge. What we have done thus far is done whatever we have had to keep the doors open and keep these beds available. They've all been moderate to smaller donations, a lot of crowdfunding, a lot of picking up the phone, cold calling, warm calling. But it's been quite difficult. As I said, we have been open for 3 years. So it's a lot of work. We do not, as we said, we don't charge a tuition. We don't take, and we don't use insurance money. So it's just a lot of hustling. A lot of people working very hard around the clock to keep those doors open. An American phone number?
Yeah, no, I see an Israeli phone number. I'm just wondering if there's an American phone number.
I can get you one. The question was if there's an American phone number. We can get you one. That's actually a good suggestion to make one available. Thank you. Yes?
So basically your place is based on structure and becoming independent. There's no 12-step program. There's no...
Our place is almost 100% 12-step based. Not 12-step based. It is 12 steps. It's a huge component of our program.
And what makes it successful over other rehabs? Most rehabs have that, have 12 steps, and they have the structure, needs, and all that. I mean, the person itself that needs the help, the addict, they don't really care about the money. It's the parents and the people that help them that put them into that facility. So what makes them succeed this place more than others?
Thank you for the question. I'm going to repeat it. The question is, do we have 12 steps? And and I answered yes. And because of the 12 steps, because of the structure, and because of the staff and all the things that I described about our program, what makes our program more successful in comparison to others if we are on paper pretty much the same thing? Yes, more or less? And the answer is the addict, you said, and one thing you said, which is the addict doesn't care about the money, the parents are paying, which is, I'm really glad you said that. What makes us different is, okay, I talked about the addict feeling this warmth and the genuine compassion from us, but that allows us to do our job. is the fact that they don't care about the money. No, we don't care about the money. On one side, it makes the staff smiley and loving, but the other side is it gives us an immense amount of power to do our job the way it needs to be done. Is that I don't have to give a kid crayons, and I don't have to give a kid a hot tub, and I don't have to give horseback riding, and I don't have to give all of these different things to keep him in my facility long enough to collect the insurance money. I can tell him how it is. These guys, something about the way that our structure is, the way that we exist, I'm telling you, creates a different environment, a different attitude, and a different power with the staff. That we can speak to these guys like they've never heard it before. Other places you can't. The kids will run away. The other places you can't talk like that because the kid will look back at you and be like, "Are you crazy? I'm paying your salary. Are you crazy? I'm paying money. This is what I'm paying money for, to be talked to like this." At our place, it's gratitude based from the second they hit the door. They are lucky to be there. We're not looking at ourselves in the mirror going, "Oh, we're so great." But mamash, a kid who has robbed, stolen, hurt, lied, keep their parents up for 10 years. He's going to go to a place with hot tubs and crayons and horses. That's the last thing he needs. I'll say that to him. I'll say that to a parent. Why? Because I'm not taking their money, and I'm not taking his money. There's an immense amount of power. It has to be used in the right way. We have guys, I tell you, that have been to those places, and they say, "I don't know what they were doing with me for 8 years. I don't know where was I?" And that's the part that I love about this the most, is like seeing this light bulb go on. We can do it it's like a light switch, and we can throw it in a week, in less. It's something to see. It's something to see.
You're saying the love and connection.
The love, the connection, and the removal of the dollar sign from above the client. It lets the staff be something that can't exist unless it's like this, and it also puts them in a space that can't exist unless it's like this, where, I repeat, it's not free because we're the goodwill. It's free because it allows us to do our job the best. It's the only way we can function. Now, within our structure, there are clinical needs. There are needs for different systems and different models. I'm not saying that there aren't, but for a lot of guys, it's extremely effective. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
I send a lot of guys to you. You know that. I'm a big supporter. One of my biggest oppositions is I'm going to send my kids to Israel. What are they going to do when they leave? Let's say they fall out of your program. They're going to be on the street. They're going to be. So could you speak to that issue? That's a big issue.
Yes, thank you, Sani. So the question is from Sani that he sends guys to us, but his biggest opposition is they're in our program. What happens if they leave? What happens if they get kicked out? Now they're in the street in Israel, and so my response to you is I agree with you. I agree with you. That's one reason that we need a men's facility in this model right here stateside. It's easier. It's really a leap. Unless they have some of these guys really want to come anyway, and I talk to them and I say that what you just said to me into this room, I say to them when I'm on the phone with them. They need to be serious if they're coming to us. It's not just a roll of the dice. That's a reality. I have that opposition too. They're on the street here.
Also, the guys who are successful, what do they do afterwards?
Okay, yeah. What about the guys that are successful? So I think if the guy is going to make that leap, if he is going to come to our facility, and if he is going to be successful, my opinion is that he needs to transition into Jerusalem and live there a while before he comes back home. That you should transition and you should be in treatment in the place that you're going to live for a while. You shouldn't go from this program to that program to the other program. I think that if a guy doesn't really want to live in Israel, doesn't really care about Israel, doesn't want to deal with it, you know what I'm saying? I think that he should potentially consider another option here stateside. I hope that we can also be that as well. They have to have a connection to Israel, or at least really want to come. It shouldn't, if it's just a last resort, oh, I'll try it because I have nothing better to do, oh, I'm homeless, oh, I'm on the street, that's not going to be the right fit, not in our house, not in anywhere. So if they're successful, to continue to live in Israel and you know, continue with the support group they have and continue with the life that they have built for themselves over that last 8 months. I think to ensure their success, there shouldn't be a rush back home. If they want to come back home, they need to do it the right way and go through that process.
Eric,
Yes.
what you're saying is that part of the reason why it's so successful is because the kids or the participants that want to join are coming not because somebody's forcing them, a parent is forcing them, and that's laying out a lot of money. It's something that they have to decide on their own and make a decision. And they can get discouraged by you to come unless they are really ready to make that commitment.
Yes. So the question is that if someone is going to come, that they really want to come, that it's not because a parent is forcing, because a school is forcing, because a sibling is forcing, anything like this. It has to come from them, and that if they're calling me and kind of on the fence, will I discourage them until they're really ready to make that commitment? So I'll talk to the, yes, for the most part, yes, except for sometimes I will talk to them, of course, even if they, you know, anyway. And even if it really seems like it's still a no, I still like to talk to them anyway, and see where they are and just tell them something so that maybe in 6 months they'll call. I don't discourage them to like do nothing, but sometimes they call with good plans, relatively good sounding plans. They might not follow through, but one of the things that I find is if they have lots of different ideas of this will work or that'll work or the other will work, I tell them you need to go and do that so that if it does, two good things will happen. It'll work, thank God. Or it won't work, and now you know, so thank God. And call me. But they need to have that freedom at that point, or else it's just going to be one place, another place, another place. Oh, but that thing I didn't try. Oh, but that idea. Oh, that place. Oh, that. You have to get rid of all the excuses.
Is it like a religious place, meaning you impose religion on the kids that come? Or
So, they don't have to keep kosher, but all the food is kosher. The place is Shomer Shabbat. They don't have to keep Shabbat, but the place is Shomer Shabbat. We celebrate all the Chagim, and we're not pushing religion on them, but we are very happy for it to be very Jewish. and we try to, with all of that stuff, whether people are holding or not holding or are not there yet, we use it more as a way to congregate and get all the guys involved, and there aren't really any problems in that regard. So it's not a yeshiva, it's a treatment center. These guys are dealing with drug addiction, and it's not my business, his relationship with God, for once. But I'm happy that if they want to go down that path, well, the food's kosher. Here's the Chagim, it's Shomer Shabbat, and we're happy to see that happen as well. That's why we are where we are. It's why we're serving who we're serving. But look, if they like it, I love it. If they're happy, I'm happy.
if they take out their cell phones and they text
On Shabbos, I'll throw it at the wall.
You what?
I'll throw it at the wall.
Oh, yeah?
That was the last thing that we had an issue once, and I said, guys, I wasn't home. And I said, next time, I'm throwing it at the wall. No, as I said, like the rule breaking is like super usher in our house. It's not my blood just boiled when you said, will they take out at the meal? I'm like, what do you mean? No, they. I won't actually throw it at the wall, but no, the downstairs is Shomer Shabbat. You know, that you have to respect the house. You have to respect the people around you. And that goes both ways. That goes both ways. If there's a guy who's, I don't want to hear anything, I don't want people telling him, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, where's your tefillin, where's the... That's not their place. It's none of our place in our house.
Where in Jerusalem are you located?
We're located in Pisgat Zev.
Oh, okay. And what's the average age, approximately,
Like when we have like a class, let's say like 8 people show up over the course of like a month, we'll have a couple guys 20, a couple guys late 20s, we'll have a couple guys in early 30s, maybe a couple guys in their it's pretty all over the place. We've had many different ages, but as young as 18 and as old as like mid 50s. Late 50s, actually.
My name is Abra. I don't have a question. I just want to really vouch for Eric and the AZ House. I worked with Eric in the Jerusalem Silver House. No, it's okay. I'm saying. I worked with Eric in the Jerusalem Silver House before it closed down. Eric, I consider you a great friend. We spent hours talking really, really serious conversations and tried to also talk about nothing a little bit. I want to say something. This house, I got the opportunity to hang out in the AZ house with the people there. The combination of Eric's authenticity and dedication to truth. There's just a bare truth in the house. And that answers some of the questions of what's unique about this house. The fact that it's in Jerusalem and the fact that it's not a yeshiva, because all too often people go to yeshiva in Jerusalem or in Israel and they want to come to some solution of wholesomeness, and if that track works for you, that's great. The bare, raw reality of what's happening in the conversations in the AZ house is priceless. This is a big, big, huge thing. So it's great what you're doing.
Thank you, Rami. I can't repeat that whole thing from here. Okay, I think that's all the time that we have. I super appreciate everyone being here tonight. And thanks again, everyone that helped put this together. So I'm going to hand the mic back. Oh.
Thank you. All right. Just want to say thank you to everyone that lasted this long. As you can tell, the AZ House is an amazing place for the people that really need it. And as you heard, they rely solely on donations, so we're not begging, we're not forcing, but if you do have the money to give to this great program, I believe they set out some envelopes on the side. They would more than appreciate your donation. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I hope you have an amazing evening.